are watching World Insight with Tian Wei, coming to you live from Beijing Studio.com on our program. Hollywood's Dunkirk and China's Wolf Warriors 2 have both stormed the Chinese box office. We will critique these blockbusters to find out which movie comes out on top, and more than that, what does it say about our understanding of heroism in history? Welcome back. You're watching World Insight with Tian Wei, coming to you live Monday to Friday on CGTN. After Wolf Warrior 2 stormed the Chinese box office, another film, Dunkirk, gave it a run for their money. Dunkirk was produced by Christopher Nolan, one of the world's most well-known directors. Both films explore heroism. However, Wolf Warriors 2 depicts a complete victory, while period piece Dunkirk shows a successful retreat. Survival instinct, depression, at desperado, and tragedy. Do these movies capture these life or death moments? And do they bring to life the struggles of heroes and heroism in wars? To talk about that, we have a very strong panel with us here in Beijing. We have Professor Teng Jimeng, our regular cultural affairs commentator, certainly a very seasoned film critic here in China. And also we are joined by a younger colleague, Ms. Zhang Xiaoxiao, senior journalist, at NetEase, who's a film critic as well. Peter Xiao, CEO of Orb Media Group and Immortal Studios. Welcome to you, sir. Let me begin by asking you, is it worthwhile to compare the box office of these two movies in order to demonstrate whether they're of the same quality or one is better than the other? Professor Teng, very briefly.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think these two films are not comparable at all. I mean, in this case, genre-wise or thematic concern.
Specifically, what do you mean?
Well, in terms of the themes concerned, I think the Wolf Warrior 2 is all about a rising China. It's all about its triumphant success, come to the rescue of the African brothers and sisters, whereas Dunkirk is a shameful defeat which covered up the history, the shameful history of Britain, two imperialist countries fighting without eventually that success. Totally missed the opportunity to win the success.
Well, when you say shameful, that's really an interesting word. Mr. Shiao, do you agree with those descriptions? Portrayed by Professor?
No,
well,
not exactly.
Mr. Shiao, please. Sorry.
I'll leave the commentary to the academics, but for those of us in the entertainment industry, they're pretty different movies. For one is actually based on historical events. The other film is a fantasy movie, which is a great action set. So they're really apples and oranges. So I don't think they invite this kind of comparison, though it is entertaining to talk about it.
And the one who is talking about the apples and oranges already nodding his head with Professor Teng here. I know you just want to be provocative at the very beginning.
Yes.
Let's go to Ms. Zhang here. What do you make of it?
I don't think, I would say on the contrary, I think it's very interesting to compare those two films because both of them, this theme of them are coming home, and maybe they have different emphasis parts, but I think it's interesting, but not comparing the box office, but the aesthetic value. It's interesting to compare those.
If you say it's interesting, let's do some comparison because it has a lot to do, some say, with people's understanding about what is making of heroes and what heroism is in different cultures. Peter, you know, Dunkirk, it was a retreat story. In Chinese history, there was also a lot of retreat stories.
Right.
For example, the Long March. It was about several times of retreat just to maintain your capabilities and eventually fight back. So what do you think about Chinese culture of accepting a retreat story? How do you see people's Chinese audience apparent enthusiasm also about this retreat story? Peter.
Well, first of all, I don't think that the box office performance of Dunkirk in China is because this is a movie about retreat. I think it's actually a very sophisticated movie that doesn't have a very direct character that you can relate to. You could say that is about one general, but it could be about the soldier on the ground. Actually, it's about many, many different characters caught up in the historic plot. So in as much as in the aggregate, it is about retreat, but I don't think the film goer is saying, oh, I don't like this film because it's about retreating. So I personally think that the Chinese marketplace, and as with the global marketplace, people have a portfolio of different tastes. Now, I think it would be a mistake to say that Chinese people think this way and not this way just because, from this example, those of us who struggle in the trenches of the entertainment industry every day creating these heroes, my sense is that people like different heroes and different heroes are appropriate at different times.
Right. Very interesting thought that Peter is arguing it is not about retreat or success. It is about whether it is a masses that we are seeing in the movie, for example, Dunkirk, or like a one individual hero, like you are saying, seeing in Wolf Warriors 2. And you know what, Professor Teng, we were, and you know, the mass story usually has been the focus of Chinese movies. But the individual success story usually is the focus of Hollywood blockbusters. And this time, it's the other way around. And it seems both are doing great. How should we understand it now?
Well, first, let me just take Peter's question on the Chinese audience not liking retreat. I think retreat, historically and in terms of our values, is a very, very shameful word. It's almost a taboo. I mean, the Chinese national government retreat from Nanjing to Chongqing during the 1930s, it was such a shameful, and nobody would talk about that part of the history. The Long March is a different story. The Long March is all about a strategic retreat, but then had a final goal to fight the Japanese, to fight an aggressing, an invading
and Dunkirk
army.
Is not.
And Dunkirk is not. Dunkirk is totally kind of missing the opportunity. Remember that very story about the history, the real history about these Anglo-French soldiers hiding in trenches.
So what is your point? The Chinese audience like retreat or not like retreat?
No, they
or
don't.
it only happened one movie?
Absolutely no. It's a very dark, it's a very gory, it's a very ghoulish film. I think ultimately it's because this director used a very different dictatorial technique. For example, there's 3 narrative strands, there's mixed editing and the gory,
I really hope we could have some of the videos of the movies being played around at this time so that to show our audience. But exactly what do you say about that masses vis-a-vis one individual of heroes so-called?
And with Wolf Warrior 2, it's almost like a rip-off from a Hollywood production. This time around,
with Chinese faces though.
Hollywood.
With Chinese faces though.
With Chinese faces though, but then it's total, the whole thing, production value, production-wise, is a Hollywood blockbuster film.
So you are saying, Professor, that it has been a great success that you just put a Chinese face over a story of Hollywood script.
Yeah, and you use one script, one character, and one story narrative strand. Do not complicate it, do not confuse our audience.
The two gentlemen are saying their own versions. What about you, Mr. Xiao, from your perspective?
I agree with Mr. Shiao more. I think it's not about what the story is. It's not about retreat or success. It's more about how you present it. How can you create the character that can hook you up through all the films? I think in that sense, Wolf Warrior 2 has better quality in terms comparing with the Dunkirk.
Interesting. I'm not sure whether better quality is exactly what you meant, but let's go to Peter. I couldn't wait to respond, Peter.
Well, look, I want to go back to the theme of retreating again. I saw Dunkirk, and I as a member of the audience, I thought the movie was about saving something that you really cared for. It wasn't really about retreating. And Wolf Warrior was really about heroism. Look, when you reach the kind of success that Wolf Warrior has reached, close to 6 billion RMB, we're talking about a phenomenal experience that Dunkirk has not reached. So clearly, Wolf Warrior is saying something about the mentality of a lot of Chinese filmgoers and Chinese citizens who want to see themselves, their culture, our life expressed in a very positive way, an empowering way. So those sentiments are exactly on the money, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for other types of
It's not about money this time, Peter. I disagree I mean, I disagree with you profoundly. I think it's all about different zeitgeist. Let me use that German word. It's different time spirit of the time. It's all about a rising China economically, politically, and perhaps militarily. I mean, you see that back in the past, this country has been burdened with the history of humiliation and being humiliated in that film. And so
okay, all right. I got it. You have different arguments, but you know what, gentlemen? You have ignored one fundamental factor in all of this. I have to say it loud and clear. Ms. Zhang, you know what I'm talking about when you go to those movie premieres as a journalist. That is, they are being shown at a very different time frame. The Wolf Warrior was being shown to the public during the summer vacation when the kids are in the theaters watching movies, all of them. And yet, Dunkirk, of course, is after that only, and it's being shown in China for a much shorter period of time. So, are we ignoring some of the most important factors, Ms. Zhang?
Of course, I think it's you have to take elements into account when you talk about the box office success. I think it's pretty sure that the Wolf Warrior did stir up some emotions. Other than that, I think the exact timing is very important.
And that has a lot to do with, you know, what to do with international blockbusters, Hollywood blockbuster, Peter, and what to do with so-called Chinese homemade movies, because the latter has been pretty much being treasured and also cultivated in China over the years. Peter, so what do you make of that?
I'm sorry, if you could speak to it again.
Yeah, the question is, it has a lot to do with whether there has been emphasis being put on homemade movies, such as Wolf Warrior 2. And yet, for Dunkirk, international ones, there are times in which they will be shown. There are times in which they will not be shown to the public. So, Peter,
the blackout dates. But keep in mind the weekend that Wolf Warrior 2 opened, it was the founding of the Republic Army, which was
the
what do you call it?
PLA, not the Republican Army.
A mainstream government film was also showcased, and the people clearly chose Wolf Warrior 2. So this brand of action-packed patriotism was preferred.
Okay, there's a big correction over there,
so they
Professor.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about the founding of the Republican Army, but it's the founding of the PLA, the People's Liberation Army.
People's Liberation Army. Okay, having said that, though, you know, for a movie to succeed here in the Chinese market, what elements would it have? Probably it would be able to, in a way, help to support patriotism and help to support what you said, Professor Teng, that many people have in mind that there has been a rising pride in China about both its future and also about its own people. And thirdly, it has to be something related to a very well-designed Hollywood structure. And fourthly, you probably need to have one individual as a hero. Are these four important elements what makes a great movie?
Well, you're quite right. I mean, all these four elements actually contribute
I didn't want to put words into your mouth,
the making of this great movie. And I mean, first thing first is the production value. And I see Wolf Warrior almost as a co-production, because with the technology transfer, you can see the music side of the talents are from Hollywood, the photography and also the script writing are also very, in a sense, the direction actor are very much Hollywood. And also the production value, it is almost the best in terms of professionalism from the PRC since the beginning of the 21st century. Lastly, I think Wu Jing is now an emerging star, a second-generation action star. I mean, he is almost classmates to Jet Li at Beijing Martial Arts School. And so this is the second generation of martial artists who rose with the emergence of China as a new power. And in this case, the rise of patriotism and also nationalism.
Okay, well, you know what? Not only that, there seems to be a lot of movie analysis and critiques going on in the media, in the APP and stuff. But there has been a lot of negative stories of Dunkirk, let's just say, before it was shown. And very pro stories about the Wolf Warriors too. And if you look at some of the general story. But you know what, Ms. Zhang, since you're a journalist writing movie critiques, there has been questions about how credible art critique, including movie critique these days in China. Because we understand journalists need to survive and they take maybe red envelope, some say.
Hongbao,
Yeah?
yeah.
But others say it's not fair that you're portraying journalists like that way. So to what way people can rely on movie critics like you? And to what way people can relate it to the kinds of scores you give to the Chinese movies and also to the international blockbusters?
I would say Chinese audience, they have their own judgment. On the one hand, I have to defend on that, not because I'm a journalist. It's also because it's a part of promotion. It's not just in Chinese film industry. It's in American industries as well. Another thing I have to say is, to be fair, the Chinese critics also give a lot of high comments, highly valued Dunkirk, the production value of Dunkirk.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is a misunderstanding that some of earlier comments that I mentioned, right? Is that what you're saying?
Partly, yeah.
Okay, great. Peter, so the Chinese audience having all of these diversity of choices when it comes to movies, how to make the choice, what to rely on to make the choice, and who would help them to understand better about the qualities of the movies. We're not saying teach them, but help them to cultivate a better sense of the qualities of movies. Peter, what is your suggestion?
Well, look, I'm a Chinese kid who grew up in Hollywood, and I worked in Hollywood for many years before moving to China to implement some of the things that I learned in Hollywood, particularly the craft. So I think the Chinese audience, in my view, are looking to connect with meaningful stories that's just not hollow, that speaks to something authentic and real, on top of the production value considerations. So I think for the past several years, there's been a lot of hot money flowing through China, so there's really been more of a financial, really focusing on the quality of the stories. And I think the success of Wolf Warrior is an example of Hollywood technology really taking root and fueling Chinese storytelling. And I think that is a new trend, and it's a very promising trend. So those who don't really up their game in terms of storytelling don't really stand a chance in this marketplace. So I think it's a very positive development. Now, having said that, if I could answer that simple question, I would be a billionaire.
Well, I'm sure you're on your way to answer that question.
Working on it.
Working on it. Before we go, final words from you. Is it a time for the real good quality movies from China to shine?
I think yes, but then even with that said, I think that the learning curve is still very, very deep. But with all these policies in place, with all these talents in China, I think that we are really on the right track to produce more valuable, more production, blockbuster kind of a value blockbuster films.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to have all of you back on our program. Teng Jimeng, Peter Xiao, and Zhang Xiaoxiao. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And let's have fun in the movie
Good to be
theaters.
part of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us, World Insight CGTN, in your search engine, or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Insight team, thanks for watching. And tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Have a great night.